Hey, I'm Æyers, and this week I finished my ring. A few videos ago, I went through picking wood, cutting a section of that wood out, drilling a hole through the center, and getting it basically to an octagon shape with a hole in the center. And this week, I have to refine that down to a finished ring. Once you do the rough shaping I did a couple videos ago, you really only have two choices: carving and sanding. Carving is better for getting off a lot of material, but you can't shape as precisely with it. Sanding takes a long time, but you can get a lot more precision out of it. I did a lot of carving to round out the corners from that octagon and take off a millimeter or two from the whole outside of the ring. After that, it's time to sand. Sanding the outside of the ring is tricky because you can't just scrub it on there real quick, because then you'll end up with a bunch of flat surfaces again, which is the opposite of what you're looking for. So instead, you have to sand in a curve, if that makes sense. Because you're sanding such a precise shape, you have to keep a lot of things in mind. So, one thing, if I'm sanding like this, if the ring is too tilted this way or too tilted that way, then one side will get too thin and the other side will be too thick. And so you really need to keep it even this way. The key for sanding your ring into a circle is making the point of contact continuously rotate around the ring as you sand. So, two options. One is moving the ring and holding this still. So if you have this here, then as you're sanding back and forth this way, you also rotate this way around. The other option is keeping this still and rotating the block around your ring. So if I'm going back and forth this way, then my left hand will tilt this block around and back again as I sand. Knowing when to stop is hard, because as it gets thinner and thinner, it looks like you're just going to ruin the whole thing and you're going to have to start over. But if you actually put it on your finger, it still feels way too thick. When sanding, you have to go from lower number, more coarse sandpaper to a much higher number, much more fine sandpaper in order to go from shaping the ring with the coarse sandpaper to really smoothing out the ring with a very fine sandpaper. I started off with 60 grit sandpaper, which can take off material pretty easily, and then I went to 200 and 400. In the past, when I've made rings, I've used a Dremel for much of the sanding at the end of the project, and I have a Dremel, but a couple things are different. First of all, it's battery powered rather than plugged in, and so the battery is old and it doesn't last that long and it doesn't have that much torque. Second of all, we got it from basically a craft store, that's basically a thrift store, and it didn't come with any of the attachments, so I had to make my own sanding attachment, and that was a whole journey, and basically it didn't really work in the end because it didn't have enough torque to really sand at any real rate. Once I had sanded down the ring in its entirety, all I used the Dremel to do was put the little notch in it. But at least you get to see me use the Dremel at all. Once I've got the ring sanded down to the right shape and sanded with the 400 or 600 grit sandpaper to get it nice and smooth, we need to wet it down and let it sit in the sun for a while so that it gets its purple color back. Now when the wood gets wet, its grains will rise a little bit. And so before I let it sit out in the sun, I'm going to go back over it with that high grit sandpaper to just knock off the little grains that have risen and get it smoothed back out. Purple Heart wood has chemicals inside it that are water soluble. And so when you get the ring wet, they dissolve in that water, and then as the water dissolves and evaporates at the surface, it leaves behind those chemicals in a layer right at the surface. Then, those chemicals, when exposed to light, slowly turn purple over time. And so that's how the Purple Heart wood slowly gets its purple color. Now that the wood has its purple color back, the only remaining step is to give it a couple coats of tung oil to finish it off, and then it'll be done. I didn't get too many clips of me actually working on the ring this week, but here's the finished product. I've only had it finished for a little while, and I'm already really enjoying wearing this ring. It is a thinner ring that I've done before, so it's very possible it'll break, but I'll make another one. Next week, I'm going to draw the D&D character I made during my first weekly episode. I'm going to try to do it using a drawing tablet, and I haven't used that before, so we'll see how it goes. Thanks for watching. See you next week.